Greetings and hello, Kaiserly Philip V here tonight. Tonight, Paris was attacked by Islamic terrorists. At this time, we don't know the origin of their attacks. We don't know the whos or the whys. All we know is that they were Muslims, and they attacked and killed, varying reports say between 40 to 60 people, have been attacked in Paris itself by Islamic jihadists. My condolences go out to the people of France and to everyone who has lost someone in this tragedy. My prayers also go out to those who are going to be continued to be menaced by this threat. To my children, my grandchildren, and the children and grandchildren of every non-Muslim, and to every child of an opposing Islamic sect, depending on whichever one may be in power in your country, who will be threatened with this kind of violence because of the way the world is going. For the first time in nearly 500 years, the entire world is looking over its shoulder for a Muslim threat. It's so odd to go back to old 20s and 30s films, or even as late as the 80s and 90s, and to see how Islam had become this curious oriental oddity that was cropping up in our cities in a globalized world. Just to see it romanticized in cultures and paintings and art at a safe distance away from all the nastiness of Islamic rule, and particularly in areas where they are not the majority. And I'm not one of those who buys into the whole Europe is being invaded by migrants rhetoric, but I am the kind of person who sees the problems with this crisis and who sees where we're going now and sees the failure of the European political system, of the world, to adequately handle this problem. We have radical left ideologues who want to open the borders and just let these people pour in and let them do as they wish, without any regard for their basic needs. They just want them here. They just think they should be here because they'll be safer here, apparently. That they'll be better off here, apparently, somehow. Then you have a bunch of right-wing ideologues who want to just close the borders, kick all these people out, and some of them, for good measure, just want to kill the ones that are already here. And it's a mess. Once again, we see Europe and Europeans divided politically along these party lines over issues. And it's a tragedy. But even above these two people, there is someone we can blame for the crisis at hand. It's not Jews, it's not communists, it's not Masons, it's the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church is to blame for the state of Europe today. It is to blame for the state of Europe ever since, I dare say, the 19th century. Because the Catholic Church was put in an unrivaled, privileged political position in history over what would become the most influential continent in the world. And they've thrown it away. It's been discarded, it's been forgotten, it's been abandoned. Not just the migrant crisis is their fault. World War I, World War II, the rise of fascism and communism, all of it could have been prevented by, and even utterly, it could have been made impossible for it to occur by the Catholic Church, by the Catholic people, by Christendom. And yet it's not. It hasn't been prevented. It's gone on and on and on. I'm not saying that carte blanche, every Catholic is to blame for what's happening right now. What I am saying is that the decisions of the ecclesiastical church, the decisions of its leaders, the decisions of the heresiarchs who presume to rule over it and believe they can change a 2,000-year-old religion to fit their ahistorical whims, are to blame for what is happening now. The Catholic Church has been the epicenter of European political life for longer than any other force in its history. It had no armies to its name. It had no great lands under its control. The Catholic Church, the Papal States even, in comparison to the other European powers, were squat. And yet, the rulers of these much more powerful nations were beholden to the Roman Pontiff. The final vestige of the Roman Empire. The only nation to ever bring peace to the European continent, to ever politically, temporally unify its people. The Catholic Church did something far better. It spiritually united Europe. It gave Europeans a common sense of purpose. I hate to burst your bubble, pan-Europeanists, but Europeans have never gotten along on the basis of blood or of white European culture. They've never done it. They had thousands of years of uninterrupted white Europeanness, and they didn't seem to find the time to get along then. But Catholicism civilized, united, and pulled together people of disparate backgrounds to form one of the most powerful forces the world has ever seen, to do things no one else has ever done. And even then, after its golden age was done, it laid the foundations for an ungrateful generation of modernists and progressives and so-called enlightened despots to do as they wished, to succeed on the backs and the bones of their Catholic ancestors. And today, what is the church doing? It's whoring itself out. It's absolutely taken a deaf ear to the migrant crisis. The most we've ever seen from the pontiffs in the way of a solution is suggesting that every parish take in a migrant family. As nice as that sentiment is, that's hardly enough. We've already proven these people are coming whether we tell them to, they can or not. We've already proven that this is going to happen whether we like it or not. We've already seen that this is a crisis that cannot be held up anymore by the political process. Sorry about that. I would cut the video here, but honestly, that's completely my fault that I'm on a roll, so I'm not going to recut the video. The fact is that this whole affair is the fault of the church. Why? Because we were given an unprecedented guardianship over this continent, over these people, an unprecedented place in their lives. And what have we done? For the last 60 years, we've squandered it. We've thrown it away. Even longer than that, we've been doing that. We've been denying our patrimony. We've been lying to ourselves all this time. We could have pulled this thing back together, but we haven't. Why? I cannot fathom. What is convinced? How I, as a person of not royal blood and not of aristocratic birth of any meaningful sort, simply an admirer of the old blood of Europe, I can't fathom how these people can't not get up every day and work to restore the world their ancestors built. I can't fathom how they don't. Maybe there's some inexplicable reason I don't know, or maybe they're just lazy and just ticking out and just, slowly spending what money they have left until they finally fade away into just absolute obscurity as they marry off their sons and daughters to commoners and whatever, and just forget that they have any sort of significance culturally or historically at all. Be like the Habsburgs and be content to be denied the right to rule lands they held for hundreds of years by a bunch of, pamphleteering politicians and, a constitution or whatever, how they can possibly do that is beyond me. It's beyond me completely as a person. Because I don't enjoy being wronged. Anyone who can tell you that, anyone who knows me, can tell you, I don't enjoy being given the runaround. I don't allow myself to be bent over a barrel. I don't allow myself to be given the short end of the stick unfairly. I don't allow it. I don't allow my friends to be treated that way. So as someone of, that temperament, I just can't understand allowing myself to be cheated out of something that is mine. I can't conceive it. But hey, maybe they know better than me. Maybe, maybe the whole, boldness gene has been replaced by a doormat gene in the royal lineages of Europe. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Do it. Prove me wrong. Prove to me these people have something left of themselves. Prove to me they're not doddering jokes. I want to believe they are made of the same stuff as their ancestors, but I look at these people and I don't see it. The church still has the chance to turn this all around. They still have the chance to remind these people who they are, to take it upon themselves to show these people this can change. A Europe that was proud of its heritage, that was strong in its culture, that was secure in its convictions, that believed in itself, would have nothing to fear from the foreign. What is the common thread of every multi-ethnic, multicultural empire that has worked? It has a strong center around which everyone is unified. Whether it's Alexander's Hellenistic Empire, whether it's the Roman Empire, whether it's the Holy Roman Empire, whether it's the Spanish Empire, they all had something that kept them together. And when they lost that, when other things became more important than that, it all fell apart. The one common thread that every European country shares that is real and tangible in its history is the Catholic religion, is Christendom. That's what they all have in common. In our histories is the answer to the problems we now face. But Europe has been crippled by self-doubt, self-loathing, and an absolute mistreatment by the church. In scandal after scandal, in idle spell after idle spell. For whatever reason, I suppose we thought it best to preserve what was left than to, rage against the dying light and do what we could and force ourselves a page in the history book, to carve for ourselves in blood a worthy final chapter to our story. Well, was it worth it to keep it? Is it all worth it now? Standing as you are above the ruins of a civilization, was it worth it? Was it worth it to just cast aside what was and crouch in the shadows and be unassuming and humble? Was it worth it to give it all up? From where I'm sitting, it wasn't. I would sooner have never known this existed. I'm serious. I would sooner have never known this existed than to see it now in its present state. Broken, downtrodden, weak. Because we have no excuse for it. There's no excuse for the situation we find ourselves in. For the first time in 500 years, we are menaced by Islamic jihadists who hate everything about us. And worse yet, we fail at every turn to not only make friends of those who are Muslim and do not share the sympathies of these terrorists, we fail at rousing our own people to a meaningful, sensible, surgical response to this kind of evil. Where is the rhetoric that made thousands of French, English, Norwegian, German, Spanish, Hungarian, Czech, Polish? Where's the rhetoric that made them make a veritable death march across the Anatolia towards the holy city to reclaim stolen land for the Christian faithful? Where was the grit in the European blood that made them stay there in that God-forsaken, sun-scorched Pale and keep it running? And not only that, but show clemency to those who deserved it, even Muslims. Where is the wit and the charm and the grace that brought the taifas of northeastern Spain into sympathy with the Crusaders and even converted some of them to Christianity? Where is that? Where is the force of arms that turned back the enemy at Lepanto, at Vienna, at Breda, at all of these important battles? Where is it? It has been spent and wasted by madmen. It has been ground down by intelligentsia morons who are just so caught up in themselves they don't realize what they're doing. Or maybe they do. It's been destroyed. It's been killed by time. An institution that stood the test of 2,000 years is now suddenly somehow at the mercy of milquetoast communists, misled intellectuals whose theses crumble at the merest presentation of fact, and a bunch of petty philosophers. This is the religion, mind you, that withstood the Huns, the Mongols, the Turks, the Mamluks, the Moors, the Vikings. Not only withstood the Vikings, by the way, but made them Christian. A religion that gave meaning and life to so many, that inspired men to great feats. I would rather have that religion than anything else. There is a chance here that something could happen. I really doubt it, but you know what? I'm open to miracles. I'm a person who's seen them time and time again, so I'm open to them. I'm open to being surprised. Even in 20 years of living, I've seen some extraordinary things. I've seen the power of, the human being, of the human soul. I've seen it in all peoples. I've seen it. We have a chance to turn the tide. Europe has been betrayed by self-hating liberals and is being pushed into the waiting, gaping, hungry jaws of far-right fascists who will chew it up, shit it out, and leave it there. Because that's what they did last time, and I quite frankly have no confidence that the second performance will be anywhere near satisfactory to turn this thing around. If it's anything like the first time, it's going to produce an entire generation of near-suicidal, self-hating Europeans who will sooner kill themselves than even preserve the genes of Catholics and Europeans. Because those people did what communism could never do. If anything, communism caused an outgrowth of traditional sympathies in the face of this great evil. We have a chance to take Europe in this hurting moment and lift it up. Like in the great painting allegory of the Bourbons returning to France, we can lift up the wounded and violated woman and restore her to glory. That is in our power if we but repent, if we convert, if we return to the true faith, and we have conviction. and if we trust in God, and if we work as though it all rested on us, it could be done. But until that time comes, we will see more of this. I may live in my lifetime to either see Europe buckle under self-hatred, not just Europe, but all Christendom, all the world. Or I will live to see fascism take my culture and my religion and use it for heinous acts, to drag it through the mud one last time, except this time it won't get up. In which point I will have to make the hardest decision of my life. We don't have time anymore. And as useless as this rhetoric is, given my station in life, and as pointless as it is to rail against powers far beyond me, from my small dorm room, in my suit, as I was on my way to a production of The Lion in Winter, I started the NSIR, and I started my blogs, and I started my pages for one reason. I had to get this to the world. I had to find people who shared the convictions I do. Because in them, I hope, we may find the spirit of our ancestors. And we may, as a phoenix from the ashes, rise up and reclaim what is ours. And with it, bring great justice to the world.